Before I start the story, I want to tell you to subscribe because only 2% are subscribers, and at 1,000 subscribers, I will post a special video.
The day that would redefine humanity's place in the cosmos began like any other, with the bustling noise of Earth's busy cities and the quiet hum of space stations orbiting quietly above. Unbeknownst to the people below, high above the stratosphere, the first ever interstellar visitor was approaching, a crippled Thrixian warship fleeing from the relentless advance of the Khazar Empire. The Thrixians, a humanoid species known for their advanced technology and peaceful nature, had been embroiled in a losing battle against the Khazar, a warlike empire bent on expanding their domain across the galaxy. The Thrixian ship, severely damaged in an ambush, managed to slip through the Khazar blockade and set a desperate course toward the nearest habitable planet, Earth. As the alien vessel entered Earth's atmosphere, it triggered a flurry of activity within NORAD and other international space monitoring agencies. Emergency meetings were convened as governments scrambled to understand the nature of the extraterrestrial visitor. The world held its breath, fearing an invasion or threat from the unknown. Captain Michael Donovan, a seasoned astronaut and military tactician, was among the first to respond. He led a team of pilots in 2 interceptors, launching from an orbital platform to meet the alien craft. As they approached, they realized the ship was not a harbinger of war, but a refugee seeking sanctuary. Its hull bore scars of battle, and it was losing structural integrity fast. Communications were initially a challenge, with humanity's digital hails met with static and confusion. However, using a combination of AI and rudimentary Thrixian linguistic data hastily downloaded from the ship's broadcasting signals, a dialogue was established. The Thrixians conveyed their plight. They were survivors of a devastating conflict, their worlds overrun, their people scattered or enslaved. Humanity was faced with a decision that stretched beyond national or even planetary concerns. The Thrixians offered knowledge and technologies in exchange for asylum and help in their struggle against the Khazar. The ethical and strategic dimensions of this offer set the stage for heated global debates and a re-evaluation of Earth's place in the wider universe. As the Thrixian ship was escorted to a secure landing zone in an international territory, the world watched on live broadcasts. The sight of the battered ship and its weary crew stepping out onto Earth soil, human-like yet clearly alien, sparked a wave of empathy among Earth's citizens. It was a poignant reminder of the universe's vastness and the shared vulnerabilities of its sentient beings. Following the momentous first contact, the world was abuzz with discussions and debates about the implications of the arrival of the Thrixians. The United Nations convened an emergency session, now famously known as the Assembly, to discuss Earth's response to the Thrixians' plea for asylum and assistance in their conflict with the Khazar Empire. In the Grand Hall of the United Nations, representatives from every nation gathered, the weight of decision palpable in the air. Captain Michael Donovan, fresh from his historic encounter, was invited to brief the Assembly on the details of the Thrixian situation. With the eyes of the world upon him, Donovan delivered a compelling recount of the Thrixian plight, emphasizing their peaceful nature and the brutal aggression of the Khazar. The Assembly was divided. Some leaders argued that Earth must remain neutral, fearing the repercussions of entering an interstellar war. Others saw a strategic advantage in aligning with the Thrixians, citing the potential benefits of advanced technology and the moral imperative to help a species in need. The debates raged on, with passionate speeches from various representatives. The French delegate spoke of universal fraternity, urging the Assembly to stand on the right side of history. Meanwhile, the Russian representative cautioned against the risks of exposing Earth to alien hostilities. The Chinese delegation proposed a middle path, suggesting a fact-finding mission to Thrixia, the Thrixian homeworld, before any final decision was made. Amidst the deliberations, a surprise intervention came from Lucas Kane, a civilian aerospace engineer whose life had been turned upside down by a Khazar raid that had reached one of Earth's outer colonies. Kane's personal account of the horrors faced by his community, combined with his technical insights into the potential of Thrixian technology, swayed many undecided nations. As the assembly moved to a vote, the air was tense with anticipation. The decision was narrowly in favor of aiding the Thrixians, with conditions attached. Earth would initially provide humanitarian aid and begin a cultural exchange, setting the stage for potential military assistance pending further review. The resolution marked a significant shift in Earth's foreign policy, from a historically Earth-centric to a proactive interstellar stance. It was a bold step into unknown territory, fueled by a combination of empathy, strategic interest, and the burgeoning sense of Earth's place in the broader cosmos. In the aftermath of the assembly, preparations began to integrate Thrixian representatives into Earth's societies, and plans were laid out for the upcoming visit to Thrixia. Captain Donovan was appointed as the head of the newly formed United Earth Fleet, UEF, tasked with overseeing Earth's inaugural interstellar diplomatic and military efforts. The decision by the United Nations to support the Thrixians resonated across the globe, igniting a sense of urgency and action. Captain Michael Donovan, now Admiral Donovan, was tasked with forming the United Earth Fleet, UEF, a coalition force of the best pilots, engineers, and soldiers from around the world. The enlistment campaign was launched under the banner Defend Humanity, Defend Peace, calling for volunteers to join an unprecedented defense initiative. The campaign quickly went viral, propelled by a wave of solidarity and the adventurous spirit of exploring and defending the wider universe. Recruitment centers were established in major cities across the continents, where thousands lined up to be part of Earth's first interstellar military force. The criteria were strict, seeking individuals with high adaptability, exceptional skills, and a robust psychological profile capable of handling the stresses of space warfare. Among the volunteers was Lucas Kane, whose personal encounter with the Khazar had left him with a burning desire for retribution and protection of others from similar fates. Lucas was an experienced aerospace engineer and amateur pilot, qualifications that made him a prime candidate for one of the UEF's elite pilot positions. His application was quickly approved, and he was ushered into the intensive training program. The training was held at a newly constructed facility in the Swiss Alps, a location chosen for its isolation and security. The recruits underwent a grueling regimen that included advanced combat tactics, zero-gravity maneuvering, alien technology handling, and psychological endurance exercises. The program was designed not only to prepare them for the physical demands of space combat, but also to foster a strong sense of camaraderie and teamwork. Lucas found himself in a diverse squadron consisting of individuals from various cultural and professional backgrounds. His squadmates included a former Brazilian Air Force pilot, a Canadian cyber warfare expert, and a Japanese robotics engineer, among others. Despite their differences, they shared a common goal and quickly bonded over the intense training sessions and late-night discussions about the future they were fighting for. As training progressed, Admiral Donovan frequently visited the troops, instilling a sense of duty and reminding them of the stakes involved. "We're not just fighting for Earth," he would say, "but for the principle that no species should live under the shadow of oppression." Back on Earth, the public followed the training and preparation through documentaries and live feeds, growing increasingly supportive of the UEF's mission. The media coverage highlighted personal stories of the recruits, the technological innovations being deployed, and the strategic preparations for the impending mission to Thrixia. As the final preparations were made for the departure to Thrixia, the mood at the United Earth Fleet's base was a blend of anticipation and solemnity. The fleet, now a formidable assembly of cutting-edge spacecraft dubbed the Viper Fighters, was ready for its first operational deployment. Admiral Donovan held a final briefing, outlining the mission objectives and the strategic importance of their first contact with Thrixian leadership. The journey to Thrixia was to be inaugurated with the warp jump, a newly developed propulsion technology that allowed for near-instantaneous travel across vast distances of space. The technology, derived from Thrixian knowledge shared as part of the Alliance, was still in its infancy and not without risks. However, the urgency of the situation necessitated its use. As the fleet aligned for the jump, Lucas found himself in the cockpit of his Viper, running through the pre-flight checklist with meticulous care. His mind briefly wandered to his family and friends back on Earth, but he quickly refocused, knowing that the task ahead required his full attention. The command to initiate the warp jump came, and in a breathtaking moment of combined apprehension and awe, the fleet vanished from Earth's vicinity, reappearing in the Thrixian solar system. The jump was successful, but not without its minor anomalies. Some ships reported temporary navigational glitches, and the psychological effects of warp travel were disorienting for many. Arriving at Thrixia, the fleet was greeted not by a peaceful welcome, but by the grim reality of a planet under siege. The skies were marred by ongoing battles, with Thrixian defense forces engaged in desperate skirmishes against Khazar drones. The Earth fleet wasted no time. Under Donovan's orders, they plunged into the fray, providing much-needed reinforcements to the beleaguered Thrixians. Lucas piloted his Viper with a blend of precision and grit, taking down enemy drones and protecting the larger UEF ships as they deployed ground forces and supplies. The intensity of the battle tested every bit of his training, and the chaos of war was unlike anything he had anticipated. Yet, amidst the turmoil, there was a profound sense of purpose. Here, among the stars, humanity was making a stand. The initial engagement was a harsh welcome to the realities of interstellar warfare, but it also marked a significant turn in the battle for Thrixia. With Earth's involvement, the Thrixians found new hope, and their resolve stiffened. The day ended with the first joint victory celebrated in the orbit of Thrixia, a poignant moment that symbolized the burgeoning brotherhood between the two species. As the fleet established orbit, preparing for the long campaign ahead, Lucas and his squadron took a brief respite aboard their carrier. They shared stories of their first combat, each pilot with their own close calls and moments of fear. Yet, there was also a shared sense of accomplishment. They had crossed the vastness of space and stood shoulder to shoulder with their new allies, fighting for a cause far greater than any one planet or species. With Thrixia as their foothold, the UEF prepared for the next phase of their mission, pushing back the Khazar forces and breaking the siege entirely. The war was far from over, but Earth's fighters were now fully committed, and their resolve was as strong as the metal of the ships they piloted. The victory at Thrixia had a ripple effect throughout the United Earth fleet, bolstering morale and solidifying the alliance with the Thrixians. As Earth's commanders strategized the next steps, intelligence reports indicated key strategic locations of the Khazar Empire that, if targeted, could severely cripple their offensive capabilities. Admiral Donovan decided that the next move would be a series of coordinated strikes against these targets, demonstrating not only the resolve of the alliance, but also the capabilities of Earth's new fleet. In the war room aboard the flagship, detailed plans were laid out. The targets included a Khazar ammunition depot, a communications hub, and an energy station, each heavily fortified and protected by advanced security systems. For Lucas and his squadron, the mission assigned was the destruction of the communications hub, a vital node in the Khazar military network. The operation was planned under the cover of a meteor shower in the system, providing natural camouflage for the approach. Lucas's team underwent a series of briefings and simulations, each pilot mentally preparing for the challenges of a stealth insertion. The mood was tense, but focused. Everyone knew the stakes were high, and the success of their mission could significantly turn the tide of the war. As the fleet maneuvered into position, the Viper fighters detached and made their way towards the target. The meteor shower masked their entry, but the final approach would be an open space, requiring precision and speed. Lucas led the formation, his ship's sensors finely tuned to detect any anomalies in the enemy's defense grid. The strike was swift. Emerging from the cover of the last meteor, Lucas and his team engaged their thrusters to full, darting towards the communications hub with lasers ready. The Khazar defenses reacted quickly, launching a barrage of counterfire. The battle was intense, with each pilot dodging and weaving through the onslaught, closing in on their target. With a clear shot, Lucas fired his missiles, watching as they struck true, causing a chain reaction of explosions within the hub. The facility went dark, its communications links severed, throwing the Khazar forces into disarray. The mission was a success, but the escape was not yet assured. As they retreated, the squadron faced renewed attacks from Khazar reinforcements. It was a harrowing flight back to the safety of the fleet, each pilot pushed to their limits. Upon their return, the debrief was brief but affirmative. The mission had dealt a significant blow to the Khazar operational capabilities. Back on Earth, news of the successful strike spread quickly, further rallying public support for the war effort. The international community saw the effectiveness of the UEF and the tangible results of their interventions, fostering greater unity among Earth's nations and a deeper commitment to their extraterrestrial allies. The success of the targeted strikes against the Khazar outposts had significantly disrupted their operations, giving the United Earth Fleet and Thrixian forces a much-needed tactical advantage. With momentum on their side, Admiral Donovan and the Thrixian commanders decided it was time to expand their operations to liberate other species oppressed by the Khazar Empire. The next objective was a series of planets known collectively as the Scylla Cluster, a strategic point in the galaxy and a hub for several alien civilizations currently under Khazar control. The liberation of these planets would not only weaken the Khazar hold on the region, but also potentially enlist more allies into the growing interstellar coalition against the Empire. Preparations for the campaign were extensive. Lucas and his squadron were tasked with escorting transport ships, carrying troops, and supplies for the ground assaults. The mission was risky. The Scylla cluster was heavily fortified, and the Khazar were on high alert after their recent losses. As the fleet neared the cluster, they were met with stiff resistance. Khazar patrol ships engaged the Earth and Thrixian vessels in a fierce battle, attempting to prevent them from reaching the planets. Lucas found himself in the thick of the combat, his skills as a pilot pushed to the limit as he maneuvered through enemy fire to protect the transport convoy. The battle was intense and prolonged, but the Earth and Thrixian forces gradually gained the upper hand, thanks to their superior tactics and the element of surprise. Several Khazar ships were disabled or destroyed, clearing the path for the landing parties on the planets below. The ground operations were equally challenging. Troops from Earth, alongside Thrixian soldiers and volunteers from other liberated planets, faced harsh conditions and fierce resistance. Urban combat unfolded in the cities of the Scylla cluster, with house-to-house fighting and strategic positioning being key to securing areas. Lucas, although primarily a pilot, was occasionally called to support ground operations. His first-hand experience in these engagements brought home the brutal reality of war on the ground, something he had previously only glimpsed from the cockpit of his fighter. During one such mission, Lucas and his team were tasked with rescuing hostages held by the Khazar in a fortified compound. The operation was a delicate balance of stealth and sudden aggression, requiring precise coordination. Despite the dangers, the mission was successful, freeing dozens of hostages and gaining valuable intelligence about Khazar operations in the region. The liberation of the Scylla cluster marked a turning point in the campaign. News of the freed planets spread quickly, inspiring other subjugated species to rise up against the Khazar. The coalition grew as more civilizations joined, drawn by the promise of freedom and the successful outcomes of the missions led by Earth and its allies. With each victory, the morale among the UEF and its allies soared. They were no longer just defenders, they were liberators, a force of hope in the galaxy. The strategic importance of their victories also meant that supply lines and reinforcements could more easily reach the front lines, bolstering their efforts as they prepared for the next phase of the campaign. As the coalition grew, with multiple civilizations joining the ranks alongside Earth and Thrixia, the Strategic Council, which now included representatives from each of the liberated planets, met to discuss the next major operation. The target was the Khazar's central command station, known as the Nexus, which coordinated much of their military efforts across the galaxy. Capturing the Nexus would not only cripple the Khazar's operational capabilities, but also deliver a significant psychological blow to their forces. Lucas and his squadron were selected for one of the most critical roles in the upcoming mission, the initial breach of the Nexus's defenses. The operation was meticulously planned, with simulations run in the holodecks of the fleet's flagship to ensure every possible scenario was accounted for. The approach to the Nexus was stealthy, using newly developed cloaking technology provided by the Coalition's latest members, the Zaltharians, who had mastered the art of light bending. The technology was not foolproof, but it provided a crucial advantage in the initial phase of the assault. As they neared the Nexus, the tension among Lucas and his squadron was palpable. They knew the success of the entire operation hinged on their ability to disable the Nexus's outer defenses and allow the main Coalition forces to engage. The moment the cloaking devices were deactivated, they would be exposed to fierce counterattacks. The operation began with precision. As soon as they were in range, Lucas and his team disabled their cloaks and launched a barrage of targeted strikes against the Nexus's shield generators. The Khazar were taken by surprise, and their response was scrambled and disorganized. Taking advantage of the confusion, the squadron inflicted critical damage, successfully disabling the shields. With the shields down, the main fleet moved in. Battleships from various Coalition species unleashed a formidable onslaught on the Nexus, while troop transports began deploying soldiers for the ground assault. Lucas remained in the thick of the space battle, providing cover for the transports and engaging Khazar fighters. The ground assault was led by a mixed force of human, Thrixian, and other Coalition troops. They encountered stiff resistance as they breached the Nexus, with Khazar soldiers defending their stronghold fiercely. The battle for the Nexus was brutal, with close-quarters combat taking place in its labyrinthine corridors. Lucas, usually confined to his cockpit during battles, was called upon to assist a special unit tasked with taking the command center of the Nexus. Armed and ready, he joined the ground forces, experiencing the visceral reality of ground combat. The corridors of the Nexus echoed with the sounds of gunfire, explosions, and the cries of wounded soldiers from both sides. After hours of intense fighting, the Coalition forces finally secured the command center, capturing several high-ranking Khazar officers and gaining access to valuable intelligence. The capture of the Nexus was a monumental victory, celebrated across the galaxy as a turning point in the war against the Khazar. The aftermath of the battle saw a significant shift in the war's dynamics. With their command structure severely disrupted, the Khazar forces began to retreat from several fronts. Across the galaxy, news of the Nexus's fall inspired further uprisings and defections among Khazar-occupied systems. With the fall of the Nexus, the Khazar Empire's control over its territories wavered. This significant victory allowed the Coalition forces, led by the United Earth Fleet and the Thrixians, to initiate the next phase of their strategy. A series of liberation campaigns aimed at freeing multiple star systems still under Khazar oppression. These campaigns were designed not only to rescue oppressed populations, but also to solidify the Coalition's foothold across the galaxy. Lucas and his squadron were deployed to one of the most crucial campaigns in the Altair sector, a region known for its strategic significance due to its rich resources and advanced manufacturing facilities. Liberating Altair would not only deprive the Khazar of critical resources, but also provide the Coalition with much-needed logistical support for the ongoing war effort. As they approached Altair, Lucas's squadron was tasked with securing the orbital defense platforms, a network of heavily armed satellites surrounding the main planets of the sector. The operation required precise coordination, as the platforms were protected by a sophisticated system of shields and automated defense cannons. The initial assault was intense. Lucas's team employed a mix of electronic warfare and brute force to disable the defense platforms. Using jamming devices to disrupt the platform's communications, they created openings for precision strikes. The operation was a testament to the Coalition's growing tactical sophistication, reflecting the diverse technologies and strategies contributed by its various members. Once the orbital defenses were neutralized, the main Coalition forces moved in to engage the Khazar ground troops. Lucas, having completed his primary mission, joined a support fleet providing aerial cover for the ground troops. The battle on the surface was fierce, with urban and guerrilla warfare tactics heavily employed by both sides. During one critical juncture, Lucas had to quickly adapt to a rescue operation. A coalition ground unit had been pinned down by a Khazar ambush in the industrial complex of Altair 3. Flying at low altitudes and navigating through industrial debris, Lucas managed to provide crucial air support, helping to evacuate the surrounded troops and delivering a decisive blow to the enemy forces in the process. With the industrial complex secured, the liberation of Altair 3 served as a major turning point in the campaign. The planet's own resistance forces, which had been fighting a shadow war against the Khazar, came out in full force to support the coalition. Their local knowledge and guerrilla tactics proved invaluable as the campaign progressed. The success in Altair sparked a series of uprisings throughout the sector. Planets and moons under Khazar control began to resist more openly, bolstered by the support of the coalition forces. Lucas's squadron continued to play a vital role, moving from one hotspot to another, supporting ground troops, intercepting Khazar supply lines, and engaging enemy fighters in the skies above contested planets. As the campaign drew to a close, the coalition had successfully liberated the entire Altair sector. The victory celebrations were muted, however, as the realities of war remained ever present. The liberated planets faced the monumental task of rebuilding, and the coalition had to maintain a strong presence to prevent any attempts by the Khazar to reclaim their lost territories. The liberation of the Altair sector marked a critical juncture in the galactic struggle against the Khazar Empire, but intelligence reports soon revealed a more daunting challenge. The Khazar were nearing completion of a superweapon capable of devastating entire planets, located in a heavily fortified system known as the Veil Nebula. The discovery shifted the coalition's priorities overnight, as preventing the weapon's completion became the central focus of their military efforts. Lucas and his squadron, now seasoned veterans of the coalition forces, were reassigned to a task force specifically formed to address this new threat. The task force included the best strategic minds and the most skilled pilots from across the coalition, tasked with infiltrating the Veil Nebula and sabotaging the superweapon before it could become operational. The mission required navigating through dense asteroid fields and avoiding advanced sensor arrays that surrounded the Veil Nebula, making it one of the most perilous endeavors undertaken by the coalition. Lucas's role was to lead a group of fighters designed to provide cover for the infiltration teams, which included specialists skilled in electronic warfare and demolition. As they approached the nebula, the task force engaged in several skirmishes with Khazar patrol fleets, testing their combat readiness and drawing enemy forces away from the superweapon's location. Lucas's squadron excelled in these engagements, employing hit-and-run tactics and using the nebula's complex terrain to their advantage. The main phase of the mission involved a covert insertion into the superweapon facility, located on a moon orbiting a gas giant within the nebula. The facility was a fortress, surrounded by energy shields and armed with powerful defense systems. The coalition's infiltration team, escorted by Lucas and his pilots, managed to land on the moon after a tense and dangerous descent through the planet's turbulent atmosphere. Once on the ground, the team split into two groups. One was tasked with disabling the energy shields, while the other would plant explosive charges at critical junctures of the superweapon. Lucas provided aerial surveillance and support, relaying tactical information and engaging any Khazar reinforcements that attempted to intercept the operation. The mission reached its climax as the shield-disabling team successfully neutralized the facility's defenses, allowing the demolitions team to access the weapon's core. Under intense pressure and with time running out, the team set the charges and evacuated the facility, just as Khazar reinforcements swarmed the area. Lucas's squadron provided crucial cover fire during the extraction, battling through waves of Khazar fighters as the coalition forces made their escape. The charges detonated as planned, resulting in a massive explosion that obliterated the superweapon, sending shockwaves through the nebula. The successful sabotage of the superweapon was a significant victory for the coalition, celebrated across the galaxy as a feat of bravery and ingenuity. The destruction not only averted a catastrophic threat, but also significantly demoralized the Khazar forces, who had pinned much of their hopes on the weapon's completion. Following the decisive victory at the Veil Nebula, the balance of power began to shift in favor of the coalition forces. The destruction of the Khazar superweapon had sent ripples of hope throughout the galaxy, inspiring more systems to join the fight against the oppressive empire. Recognizing the need to capitalize on this momentum, Admiral Donovan and the Strategic Council planned a series of offensives aimed at liberating key systems still under Khazar control. Lucas and his squadron were once again at the forefront of these operations, tasked with securing space lanes and providing air support for coalition ground forces. The next major target was the Carrion system, a critical junction for the Khazar's supply lines and communication networks. Its liberation would severely cripple the Khazar's ability to sustain their remaining forces across multiple fronts. As the coalition fleet approached Carrion, they were met with fierce resistance. The Khazar, aware of the system's strategic importance, had fortified their positions and prepared extensive defenses. The initial skirmishes were brutal, with high casualties on both sides. Lucas's squadron played a key role in these engagements, using their superior piloting skills and tactical knowledge to outmaneuver and gradually wear down the Khazar defenses. On the ground, the battle for Carrion was equally intense. Urban centers and industrial complexes became battlegrounds, with coalition forces engaging in close-quarters combat against well-entrenched Khazar troops. Lucas, when not in the cockpit, joined special operations teams on several critical missions to sabotage Khazar supply depots and communication hubs, further disrupting their ability to coordinate their defenses. Throughout these operations, the coalition's diverse makeup proved to be a significant advantage. Different species contributed unique skills and perspectives, enabling innovative tactics and strategies that the Khazar struggled to counter. The Thrixians, with their advanced technology, provided invaluable electronic warfare support, while human forces, known for their resilience and adaptability, excelled in ground assaults and aerial dogfights. After weeks of fierce fighting, the coalition forces finally secured Carrion. The liberation was a turning point, leading to the collapse of Khazar authority in the surrounding regions. Planets that had been under the yoke of Khazar rule for decades celebrated their newfound freedom, and the morale among the coalition troops soared. In the aftermath of the victory, Lucas and his comrades took some time to reflect on their journey. They visited liberated cities on Carrion, meeting with locals who expressed their gratitude and shared stories of life under Khazar rule. These interactions deepened Lucas's understanding of the war's impact and reinforced his commitment to the coalition's cause. As the coalition prepared for the next phase of the campaign, strategic planning sessions became more frequent. Lucas, now recognized as one of the most capable pilots in the fleet, was often consulted for his insights into enemy tactics and his experience in combat. The war was far from over, but the successes in the Veil Nebula and Carrion had given the coalition a clear strategic advantage. The liberation of the Carrion system had significantly weakened the Khazar Empire's operational capabilities, creating a strategic opening for the coalition forces to push deeper into enemy territory. The next target was the Dracon Cluster, a densely populated region still under Khazar control, known for its rich resources and strategic importance as a manufacturing hub for the Empire's war machinery. Lucas and his squadron were tasked with leading the aerial assault, aiming to cripple the Khazar's ability to produce warships and weaponry. The mission was critical. If the Dracon cluster could be taken, it would not only deprive the Khazar of crucial resources, but also boost the coalition's manufacturing capabilities significantly. The assault on the Dracon cluster began with a massive coordinated strike involving all elements of the coalition forces. Lucas led a squadron of advanced fighters, the latest models equipped with enhanced armaments and shielding, developed through the combined technological prowess of the coalition's member species. Their target was the series of orbital defense platforms that ringed the main planets of the cluster. As the coalition fleet engaged the platforms, Lucas's squadron executed a series of high-speed maneuvers to evade the dense anti-aircraft fire. Using the debris from destroyed platforms as cover, they managed to disable the defensive network, clearing the way for the main invasion forces. On the ground, the battle was grueling. The Khazar had fortified their positions within the major industrial complexes, turning them into fortresses brimming with troops and heavy artillery. The coalition forces, including human marines and Thrixian shock troops, had to fight their way through these defenses in intense urban combat scenarios. Lucas occasionally joined ground operations, where his combat skills and leadership were put to the test in a different battlefield environment. During one critical operation, he led a squad through the war-torn streets of Draconia, the cluster's capital, to secure a communications hub that was coordinating the Khazar defenses. The mission was perilous, with snipers and booby traps around every corner, but the successful capture of the hub significantly disrupted the enemy's command and control capabilities. The liberation of the Dracon cluster took weeks of fierce fighting, with significant losses on both sides. However, the strategic gains were undeniable. With control of the cluster, the coalition not only cut off a major supply line for the Khazar, but also gained access to the advanced industrial facilities, which were quickly repurposed to support the war effort. The victory was a testament to the resilience and bravery of the coalition forces, and it marked a major turning point in the war. Liberated inhabitants of the Dracon cluster, who had suffered under Khazar rule for generations, joined the coalition, bringing with them valuable intelligence and additional fighting strength. In the aftermath of the battle, Lucas spent time with the newly liberated populations, hearing their stories and sharing his own. These interactions deepened his resolve and reminded him of the broader significance of their fight. He was fighting not just as a pilot or a soldier, but as a liberator in a war that was reshaping the galaxy. As the coalition prepared for the final phases of the war, Lucas and his squadron trained relentlessly, integrating new tactics and technology into their repertoire. They knew that the final confrontations with the Khazar Empire would be the most challenging yet, but the successes in the Dracon cluster had given them a clear message. Victory was within reach, and the coalition was stronger than ever. Buoyed by their recent victories, the coalition forces, now a robust alliance of multiple species and systems, set their sights on the Khazar's stronghold, the fortress world of Khazaria. This planet was the heart of the Khazar Empire, heavily fortified and bristling with defenses. Its capture would effectively end the Khazar's reign of terror across the galaxy. The plan for the assault on Khazaria was complex, involving multiple phases and the coordination of all coalition assets. Lucas and his squadron were assigned to one of the most critical roles in the operation, disabling the planet's orbital defense grid, which was the first line of defense protecting Khazaria from space-based attacks. As the coalition fleet approached Khazaria, the scale of the challenge became apparent. The orbital defense grid was not only heavily armed, but also protected by a fleet of Khazar warships and fighter squadrons. The battle to reach the planet would be one of the largest and most intense engagements of the war. Lucas led his squadron into the fray with precision and determination. They darted through volleys of laser fire and navigated between capital ships locked in combat, targeting the defense grid's power stations. Each successful strike by Lucas and his team brought the coalition forces closer to a breach in the Khazar defenses. Meanwhile, on Khazaria's surface, coalition ground forces prepared for the invasion. They faced a daunting task. The Khazar had built extensive fortifications and were determined to fight to the last. The ground campaign would be perilous, but the orbital assault needed to succeed first to give them a fighting chance. After hours of intense space combat, Lucas's squadron managed to disable the main power station of the orbital defense grid. The grid flickered and went dark, leaving Khazaria's atmosphere open to the coalition forces. Cheers erupted across the coalition fleet, but there was little time to celebrate. The ground invasion was about to begin. Lucas quickly joined a special operations group tasked with securing key landing zones on the planet's surface. As they descended through the atmosphere, anti-aircraft fire from the ground pelted their transport ships. Lucas, piloting a nimble lander, maneuvered through the chaos, evading incoming fire and providing cover for the transports. Once on the ground, the reality of war hit hard. The landscape was scarred by trenches, fortifications, and the debris of what had once been vibrant cities now turned into war zones. Lucas and his team moved quickly to secure their objectives, engaging Khazar troops in close combat and using every tool at their disposal to push forward. The ground invasion stretched on for days, with each inch of ground contested fiercely by the Khazar forces. However, the coalition's morale was high, driven by the knowledge that the fall of Khazaria would mark the end of the war. Lucas found himself in the thick of this struggle, not only fighting as a pilot, but also leading troops on the ground. Finally, after a relentless assault, the coalition forces captured the Khazar capital city, securing the government district and effectively crippling the Khazar command structure. The Khazar emperor was captured, and his regime crumbled, leading to celebrations across the galaxy. The liberation of Khazaria was a historic victory. It marked the end of the Khazar Empire's tyranny and the beginning of a new era for the galaxy. The coalition, a tapestry of different species united by a common cause, had proven that together they could overcome even the greatest of threats. For Lucas, the victory was bittersweet. While he rejoiced in the coalition's success, the cost of the war and the sacrifices made by so many weighed heavily on him. He had grown from a lone pilot seeking vengeance to a leader who had helped guide his comrades through the darkest of times.